Well, thank you so much, Chair. And I want to thank all of our witnesses, first of all, for your service to the country and for your testimony here today. And of course, I as well want to say hello and welcome to all the students. I know Wilfred's out there, and just to let you know, your dad said really good things about you. So, my question, I'm going to start with Mr. Brouillet. I really appreciate your testimony and found quite horrifying to hear that you were diagnosed with jet lag. I'm going to probably never forget that for the rest of my life. So thank you for sharing that. But I just want to get one thing clear. Have you sent to the committee the report that you were citing earlier? I just want to make sure that that's been sent to the committee.
The Parliamentary Budget Officer report, Ms. Blaney? Yeah.
Yes.
I will make sure they get it, but I have not sent it.
Okay, if you could do that, I just want to make sure that that information can be included in the report. You also talked about animosity between veterans, which I think is one of the challenges that we don't hear enough about. And it concerns me greatly because when you take on that role of service, you want people to feel like part of a team. That's part of what it is to serve in the military, and to have ways that people feel animosity, I think, is unfortunate. So I just want to get a little bit of clarity because you talked about combat and non-combat. And I think that one of the challenges we're hearing really clearly in this study is that those categories are very important, and how they're being dealt with right now is harmful. So I'm just wondering if you could talk about why combat versus non-combat, and is that your recommendation that that be the change?
I appreciate the question, Ms. Blaney. I would just like to clarify, do I agree with the distinction? No, I would understand it. But if we take the precedent from World War II, what happened was in 1946, the Pension Act was changed so that people that originally were just merely stationed in Canada were covered under, if you remember, the compensation principle. There was such rancor and misunderstanding about what was going on that the government actually changed the Pension Act and said that all veterans who were stationed back home would be covered under the insurance principle. And so if we go to, for instance, 9/11, that under the infamous document 1147 that Veterans Affairs has about the insurance principle, they made it going forward, all veterans that were on training would be covered under the insurance principle, even during their downtime on weekends when they were training for an SDA. Well, the fact is that when we join the military, we're training for SDAs from the day we put on that uniform. I really think that there shouldn't be any distinction. I think that the benefits that are given for disability will compensate for that distinction. I think that when all of us are in the military, we're heavily indoctrinated and heavily disabled to retransition back into civilian life, no matter what our disabilities.
Thank you for that. So, I keep hearing about the differences between the Pension Act and the Wellbeing Act. I'm just wondering if you could explain that a little bit, and what are the economic losses, and what are your thoughts are on that? And I guess the last thing that I would ask is, when I'm listening to this, and thank you so many witnesses for trying to make this clear in my brain. This is a huge issue to wrap your head around, so I really appreciate the patience. But I'm wondering, is there a way, or should we do something where the Pension Act and the Veterans Wellbeing Act be harmonized so that people who serve together get the same benefits? Is that a solution that we could look at?
Certainly, and I think when we compare the benefits that all veterans from basically World War I right up until 2006 were covered under the Pension Act. Prior to that, there were other lifelong pensions in place. The important thing, I think, one aspect for a committee that cares about families, spouses and children of the families, they were always compensated for separately under the Pension Act. 2006, that changed. And since then, it has not improved the situation. There are no extra monies for a married person or a person with dependents or a person with children. And so I think in order to harmonize the benefits, yes, we know what the costs will be, and Parliament would not be happy about approving that. But it's an easy fix if we ignore the money part. All we have to do is replace the pain and suffering compensation under the Veterans Wellbeing Act with the Pension Act. And there, it's done.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That is so helpful. I just want to go to Mr. Banks really quickly. What could the government be doing to commemorate Persian Gulf and Afghan veterans? I think it's really important because what I hear again and again is this reality of feeling excluded. And so what do we need to do now with all of the tensions to take that next step?
Well, speaking briefly on Persian Gulf, because as I said, I'm not a Persian Gulf veteran. When I was doing some research before coming in today, I noticed that there is not a monument in Canada dedicated to the Persian Gulf mission. There are monuments dedicated to smaller missions, but 4,000 Canadians went to the Persian Gulf and there's no monument. Give them a monument. I mean, here on the Afghan side, we're hammering for a monument. Give them a monument too. Another thing that I mentioned briefly in my opening statement, I talked about the Combat Action Declaration that is teased every couple of years. We're talking about war service amongst different generations of veterans, and why not just apply that? That would give the recognition to those who crossed the line, went outside the line, and actually engaged the enemy. We've been talking about it for decades. I mean, these are I think Mr. Bloys was the one who said it. Commemoration is incredibly easy, and the fact that the government's dragging its feet on it is indicative.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blaney. And